and teach your word to us, that we may grow in faith, that we may become more like you and be better examples of faithfulness of you into this world. Help us, Lord. Help us to hear your message, to feel your presence and be open to your transformation, that we might become a people that find your path by hearing your word and living it out as we walk your way. Do this, Lord, in spite of me or through you. For this we pray. Amen. Thou shalt not commit murder. I could preach for 15 to 20 minutes on that little passage. But I have a feeling that everyone here probably isn't struggling with thou shalt not commit murder. And so we are looking at instead of what Jesus said about that passage. Because I think Jesus probably looked out at the crowd and saw something similar, that the people weren't struggling with the letter of the law of not committing murder. What the people were struggling with was the spirit behind it, the attitude and the feeling and the emotion and the love that was behind God's commandment of thou shalt not commit murder. And so Jesus takes this statement and says, you have heard it said, your ancients were told this, thou shalt not commit murder, and those who commit murder shall be liable to the court. But I say to you, even if you are angry with your brother, you are guilty before the court. If you say you good for nothing to your brother, you are guilty before the Supreme Court. And if you say you fool, you are guilty enough to burn in fire in hell. You see, Jesus was trying to drive at the spirit behind thou shalt not commit murder, and that's the anger and the behaviors that we have toward each other that stem from that anger. In many ways, Jesus is trying to show us how he, as God, is like a parent, and we are like children. Now, what I mean by that is I'm going to use a metaphor that he probably wouldn't have used, but one that we would understand. Jesus is like a parent driving the car, and in the back seat are all of us children, and we're fighting, right? We're acting out in anger. We're calling each other names. We're getting in each other's faces. We're touching each other's bubbles. We're doing all sorts of things to upset each other. How many of you have ever experienced being in a car? The children are in the back seat and they're going off. He's touching me. She's in my space. Mom, he called me a name. Anyone? Everyone? Yeah. And it's something that we know, right? How many of you have been annoyed by being the parent trying to drive in that situation? Right? So let's imagine that God is our parent and he is driving this cosmic universal car that all of creation fits into, and he's trying to get us to eternal life. And as he's trying to get us there, what does he keep hearing coming from the back seat? All of us whining and crying and pushing and shoving and getting angry and fighting. And so here Jesus is saying, if you don't stop calling each other you fools, I am going to stop this car, I am going to get out, and I am going to come back there and deal with it myself. Because that's really what you're guilty enough to go in the fiery hell is, right? Jesus is going to stop the car, he's going to get out, and he's going to come back there, and he's going to deal with the problem children in the back seat. It's not just about murder, it's about how we treat each other, how we interact with each other. And let's face it, the more we act out in anger, the more we hurt each other, the more we upset each other, the more we upset God. And we can kind of know that this is how it works because let's look at the next lines that Jesus says. That he literally says right after those who are guilty of calling each other fools are guilty enough for fiery hell, the next thing he says, if you come to me with your offering, and while you are there, you realize that your brother has something against you, leave your offering there, go and reconcile with your brother, and then come back. Essentially, don't get into the car while you're still fighting with your brother. Fix that problem, and then we can start talking. Then we can get to where we're going, and everyone's going to get their back. So let's look at how this actually plays out in real life. Because a lot of us, if we're honest, we probably have to admit that we find ourselves getting angry a lot of times for various reasons. Anybody ever been angry because somebody cut them off? Anyone ever said some kind of combinations of you, or something along that lines, maybe a little bit more extreme when so-and-so cut them off? Right? Anyone ever been upset that somebody tried to merge in their lane, somebody was talking on their cell phone, somebody was sitting there in front of you in the grocery store line or the Walmart checkout, and they spent a whole bunch of time talking. All their stuff was rang out, but they decided to spend time talking with the cashier while you're sitting there waiting, and you really don't want to stand there waiting while they have their conversation. Anyone have that? Anyone get a little angry in those situations? Anyone ever been in a rush and found that the whole world seems to be going slow in front of you while you're trying to rush to get somewhere on time? Get a little angry then? Yeah. We struggle with anger. Any of us ever been angry at our kids? Yeah. You get a little angry. It's our natural thing, right? It happens. But what if we took Jesus' word seriously? What if we looked at the fact that Jesus said that if we are getting that kind of angry, we are guilty of sin? What would that mean for our lives? Would we perhaps have to change some of our behavior? Would we have to re-look at how we consider what is actually a sin or what is actually deserving of the fire of hell? Because I think even as good Christians, as people who love and follow Jesus, we have to admit that we probably have gotten angry. We probably have said some pretty hurtful things to people over the years. Or we've said some pretty hurtful things about them over the years. And so how do we deal with this? I think the best way to start dealing and handling with our anger is to start with a couple things that the psalm kind of talked about. Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with God. I think that kind of gets into it, but I think it's a little more than that. I think we start with understanding. And that understanding and humility are kind of tied together. Because as we begin to think and understand other people, as we begin to understand the people that we're angry with, that's where the humility kicks in, and we have to admit we probably were those people at some point, right? How many of us who have had to deal with kids in the back seat of our cars, at some point were probably the kids dealing in the back, that their parents were dealing with in the back seat of their car? How many of us probably at some point or other cut someone else off while we were driving? How many of us were the person that was having that conversation with that cashier because they'd been our friend for 20 years and we know that they were dealing with a cancer thing last week, and so we were just talking and catching up with them because we ran into them. And we stopped paying attention to the fact that there's a line behind us. How many of us have been distracted by our cell phones while driving or something else, and we sat at that green light a little bit longer than we should have because even with the orange glare behind us. I think most of us probably have been in those places where we have upset other people, where we have been the one that was at fault. And when we are humble enough to admit that those people who make us angry are probably not all that different from ourselves, it becomes a little bit easier to extend them mercy, doesn't it? It becomes a little bit easier to forgive them when we realize that those shoes that they are currently wearing are probably the same shoes that we have in our closets. Those same shoes that we have probably walked many a mile in ourselves. And sometimes perhaps a little understanding may be learning about the situation, because when you call somebody an idiot that cut you off, if you found out that the reason that they cut you off is because somebody was in their passenger seat who was bleeding and needed to get to the hospital in an emergency situation, and they were trying to get there as fast as they could, or are they still an idiot for cutting you off? Would you do the same? If you had somebody you cared about in your passenger seat and you needed to get them to the hospital? Understanding, grace allows us to forgive, and sometimes we may not even need to really know what's going on in their life. Sometimes, if we just think about the possibilities of what they may be going through, that it's enough to help calm our anger. If we begin to, instead of just assuming that they are a jerk who decided to cut us off, but instead decided to start thinking of all the possible reasons, good reasons why they might have had for doing it, it's a lot harder to be angry about. And then that leads us to mercy and forgiveness, right? Because if we understand that there may be a reason that they did it, then we're more likely to forgive them. We also would want that because we want to be forgiven, right? We don't want people thinking we're a jerk for all of those times that we did those things, right? Most of us want people to think that we're good persons, good people, that we're Christians, strong in our faith. And so we need to extend that same mercy, that maybe that's what they want people to think about them as well. And so because that's what we want, we offer that to them. And then we allow God to have our anger. We try to understand, we try to offer mercy, and then what's left of our anger, we let God have. How many of you have ever had somebody angry? Was it pleasant? Did you like having somebody angry and upset at you? Anyone? Anyone enjoy having people angry and upset at them? I can tell you as a pastor, I cannot get through a week without at least one person being angry and upset at me. It's not the greatest way to go about life, but they did teach us a phrase in seminary, and they continue to reinstill that phrase in us every time that we talk to our supervisors. And that phrase goes a little like this: you can please no one all the time. You can please some of the people some of the time, and you can please everyone none of the time. There will always be people that are angry with us, and it doesn't feel good. But what if we stop being a people that were angry with others? Would their lives be better if they didn't have us angry at them? Would their lives be more pleasant if we didn't act out and react to them in anger? Because we've already said that our lives aren't pleasant when people are angry at us. So what if we didn't act out in anger in other people's lives, would their lives not be better? And if their lives are better, have we not taken one step in making the world a better place, at least for someone? I think this is really what Jesus is getting at. Is what he's calling this crowd, his disciples, to do. Because he wants the world to be a better place. He wants the car to get us from creation to eternal life, and he wants it to get us there in a fairly pleasant manner so that we're not ready to strangle each other when we get to eternal life, because we're going to have to be together for eternity. It's a long time. Almost an eternity. Let's be a people that don't just hear the letter of the law, that you shall not murder, but actually look into what God was trying to say. Let's be a people that love each other, that make the world a better place by treating people the way that in our perfect world we would be treated, the way that we envision the kingdom of heaven being. Because we envision heaven being a place where people are angry at us, right? So let's make that happen here by letting go of our anger with others, by reconciling and fixing those relationships that we have broken. Let us be people who heard Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, took it to heart, and lived it out. Because when we do that, the world will see Jesus in our lives.